A car accident caused me to lose my memories. When I opened my eyes again, I saw only the stark white ceiling of the hospital room. I could only feel my throat as if a fire were burning inside it. I gathered all my strength, my voice hoarse, shouting for water. I wanted to drink water. It was a refined face like a cherry blossom. Her small lips painted with vibrant color suddenly caught my eye. I looked at her face dazed, feeling only my heart wanting to leap out of my chest. "You're awake, huh?" Her voice was tough as nails. Hit like that and still fine. Hearing that local accent in her voice, my eyes widened, doubting whether my ears had misheard. It completely shattered all the beautiful illusions I had just formed about her. Such a sweet, pleasant voice. How could it sound exactly like some guy named Victor Steele? "Want water, right? Come on, open your mouth." I stared at her face, bewildered, instinctively opening my mouth. After drinking the water, I immediately felt much better. I furrowed my brow, trying to guess who this beautiful girl was. Just then, I saw a nurse enter to check the room. I quickly called out to her, shouting, "Nurse! Nurse, who is she?" Saying that, I pointed at the person sitting in the chair beside me. "That's Willow Grace," she said, sitting cross-legged and smiling. As soon as the words left my mouth, the woman in the chair and the nurse both froze, staring at me in shock. I awkwardly scratched my head, unsure what to do. The nurse spoke first. "She's your wife. Don't you remember? Wife in the hospital room." I was so shocked I jumped out of bed, shouting, "My God, how did I suddenly get a wife out there?" I glanced at the woman, who was lost in thought, pondering something. Her face was truly beautiful. Her figure wasn't bad either. If she's my wife, it seems I didn't lose out. The nurse, surprised, asked, "Yes, exactly. In your phone, she's listed as your wife." Willow Grace only now realized why the hospital had called her, calling her Mrs. Felix Dawn. So that's where the issue lay. It seems this time, I had forgotten everything, a perfect coincidence. Willow Grace looked up, pretending to show a hurt expression. Sobbing, she said, "Yes, darling. I'm your wife, Willow Grace. Don't you remember me?" Hearing her gentle voice and that aggrieved expression, I couldn't help but shiver. Compared to the voice I first heard, it felt strangely indescribable. But when the nurse said she was my wife, deep down I was secretly thrilled and believed she truly was my wife. I reached out, grasping her hand in mine, sincerely saying, "Wife dear, I don't know why I can't remember you. I'm truly sorry." Willow Grace, for the first time, saw me express such emotions to her. God knows when I touched her hand, how fast her heart was racing. Her face flushed red. I saw her face growing redder, felt her palm sweating endlessly, worried she might be ill. I reached out to touch her forehead. The nurse muttered softly, spreading dog food in the hospital, saying that she pouted and left. The hospital room was only so big. No matter how softly the nurse spoke, Willow Grace and I heard it. I awkwardly pulled my hand back, scratching the back of my head, saying, "Wife, are you okay?" Willow Grace, hearing me call her wife repeatedly, felt her face burning like fire, silently screamed inside, covered her face, and ran out, leaving me alone in the hospital room. I still didn't understand what was happening. Everyone had left. I helplessly shrugged, not expecting to tug at my wounds. The pain made me grit my teeth. Now I only felt the aching wounds. I looked at the drawing of a pig on my hand and burst out laughing. Not careful, I pulled at my wounds again. Laughter mixed with groans of pain. Was I such a chinabu before? Drawing a superhero pig on my hand. Why not draw Peppa Pig instead? I shook my head, forgetting my neck was injured too. The pain made me wince nonstop. This time I behaved, only lying still on the bed, not daring to move. On the other side, Willow Grace, leaving the hospital room, went straight to the medical office. "Drive Leaf, why did my husband lose his memory?" Drive Leaf turned and said to Willow Grace, "Perhaps because during the accident, his brain suffered a strong impact. Blood clots pressed on the nerves, leading to memory loss. But it doesn't affect his health." Willow Grace gritted her teeth, asked the question she most wanted to know. "So is there a chance he'll recover his memory?" Drive Leaf frowned seriously, saying, "Well, no one can say for sure. It might recover in a few days, or he might never remember again." Willow Grace ignored most of what he said, only caught the part about never remembering, and happily walked out. Driveleaf didn't understand why she was so happy. When Willow Grace returned to the hospital room, she held a thermal container. Willow Grace cheerfully came to the bedside, saying to me, "Darling, you must be hungry after so long, right? Come try the chicken soup I made." I, looking constipated, stared at her, not knowing why my back suddenly itched. I tried hard but couldn't reach it. There was no one nearby. Moving too much caused pain all over. The call button for the nurse was out of reach. I could only grit my teeth and endure. Seeing Willow Grace, I felt like I saw a savior, but still couldn't avoid feeling embarrassed. Then I thought, she's my wife. What's wrong with her helping me scratch and itch? Gathering all my courage, I looked at her, but seeing her smile, I deflated, shyly saying, "Wife, can you help me with something?" Willow Grace, though used to being called wife a few times, still blushed at hearing it again. She put down the thermal container gently, saying, "What's wrong, darling? Can I help you scratch your back? You can't reach it." Seeing Willow Grace blush noticeably, I secretly marveled in my heart. Why is my wife so thin-skinned, blushing at the slightest thing? If not before I could finish, I heard Willow Grace's voice. She looked up, her face bright red, making her beauty even more striking. I stared entranced, bluntly saying, "Left side of my back." Suddenly I felt like liquid was flowing from my nose. Quickly wiping it with my right hand, Willow Grace, hearing it was the back, hesitated for a moment, but seeing the naive look of the man on the bed, she gritted her teeth, reached out to scratch my back, thinking to herself, "Felix Dawn, just you wait. Once I trick you into registering our marriage, it'll make you give me 8 sons. If I don't exhaust you, I won't be satisfied." I shivered, glancing around, not knowing where such malice came from. Looking at the woman scratching my back, I couldn't help but sigh. With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? After scratching my back, I watched Willow Grace open the lunchbox, spoon by spoon feeding me chicken soup. I could see she truly loved me. Otherwise, she wouldn't blow on each spoonful to cool it before feeding me. I looked at her, gently blowing on the spoon in her hand. Asked, "Wife, why did I get so badly injured?" Willow Grace naturally knew I had an accident rushing home, but seeing my clueless expression, her eyes darted, deciding not to tell the truth. "You were rushing to get the household register to marry me, and crashed into a truck with failed brakes." Hearing her local accent, I was stunned, speechless, dazed. Willow Grace saw my expression, realized she forgot to change her tone, cleared her throat, saying, "Darling, you were rushing to get the household register and crashed into a truck. You don't know how worried I was." Saying that, she grabbed my right hand and cried. Seeing her cry, I panicked, immediately forgetting about her voice. All my attention focused on the crying girl before me. Their wife, don't cry. I'm fine, aren't I? Though my left arm was bandaged and hurt with every move. Seeing her cry, I endured the pain, patting her head to comfort her. Willow Grace wasn't really crying, just covering up the awkwardness of calling me darling for the first time. But hearing my clumsy comforting, she couldn't hold back and cried for real. "You idiot!" Willow Grace cried for a bit, then sat up straight, continuing to feed me chicken soup spoonful by spoonful. I looked at the beauty with red eyes before me, reached out with my right hand to wipe the tears from her eyes. We both looked at each other and smiled. She leaned her head against my hand. A moment later, a nurse walked in, helplessly looking at us, saying, "Are you done? The patient needs a bandage change. I've been waiting half an hour." Willow Grace and I looked at each other, hearing the nurse, our faces flushed with embarrassment. Willow Grace suddenly shoved the bowl of chicken soup to my mouth. I instinctively opened my mouth. Willow Grace poured it in. I looked up at her, wondering why she suddenly got so rough. Willow Grace didn't care much when it was just us two. She could be as mushy as she wanted, but couldn't let a third person see. So after pouring, she quickly packed up and left. This series of actions not only stunned me, but also shocked the nurse, changing my bandages. After Willow Grace left, the nurse came to my bedside, hesitantly saying, "Did you bully her?" I waved my hand, probably just shy. After the nurse changed my bandages, she routinely warned not to let the wounds get wet, then left. After this incident, all the nurses knew. Room 103 had a very affectionate couple. Willow Grace and I didn't disappoint their gossip. Our relationship was indeed very good. Thanks to Willow Grace's attentive care, my wounds healed quickly, though I hadn't regained my past memories. I felt my current life was very happy, lying in bed for a month, drinking chicken soup every day. Now the sight of chicken soup made me want to vomit. My slight ABS had turned into a big blob of fat. Today, I rarely got out of bed to weigh myself. Gained 20 pounds. No wonder I felt uncomfortable. The hospital room door opened. Another day of my wife appearing. Before seeing the lunchbox made me happy. Now seeing it made me dread. But this time she brought good news. Darling, Drive Leaf said you can go home to recover this afternoon. I looked at her smiling and said, "That's great. I'm lying here about to fall apart." She quickly opened the lunchbox, saying drink more chicken soup. Darling, I looked at the glossy oil on the soup, swallowed hard, shyly saying to her wife, "Can I not drink it?" "What did you say, darling?" Seeing her radiant flower-like smile, I knew I couldn't escape this bowl of chicken soup. Over this time, I'd come to understand my wife's temperament. If I went along with her, she'd speak gently and kindly, but if I went against her, I'd only suffer. Under her loving gaze, though unwilling, I drank it all. After drinking, I remembered we hadn't registered our marriage. So I said to her wife, "How about we register our marriage this afternoon? Dragging it out like this isn't good." She slowly approached me until she was close to my face, with a flustered expression asking, "Are you sure?" Seeing her expression, I felt a bit strange. Didn't she say before I got into an accident rushing to get the household register? Is there a problem? No problem, of course, no problem. Willow Grace had planned to slowly trick me into registering our marriage. Didn't expect me to suggest it myself, pretending to be a good girl all this time. Honestly, Willow Grace was tired, thinking that after marriage, taking advantage of my memory loss, she'd make me do all the housework, give her 8 sons. She didn't believe I could escape then. Willow Grace thought to this point, almost couldn't hold back her laughter. Seeing the change in her expression, I felt a bit regretful, thinking to myself, did I choose a silly girl by mistake? But looking at her beautiful face and figure, I gritted my teeth, silly or not. Silly people have their own blessings. I definitely wasn't driven by lust. Soon we were at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Of course, I'm not a reckless person. In this month, every day I listened to her talk about our story. She said we were childhood sweethearts, very close. Said I liked her so much I often bullied her. Stole her toys. In middle school, high school tore up love letters from other boys. After my parents went bankrupt, I became penniless. She stayed by my side, never leaving. The things she told me felt vaguely familiar. I believed her words. Combined with her devoted care this month, I resolved to marry her. At this moment, Willow Grace's voice came from behind. "Go in, what are you standing outside for?" I turned to look at her beautiful face. Couldn't believe such a beauty chose to marry me. I smiled, grasping her hand. Her hand was beautiful, smooth as polished white jade. I held her hand, stepping inside, queuing for a number. My heart couldn't help but race. Willow Grace meanwhile felt, why is it so slow? She couldn't wait to marry me. But this fool used to take her kindness for granted. It was our turn. Willow Grace patted my shoulder as I sat dazed. Isn't it? I snapped back to reality. Quickly stood up, leaning on the chair. I nervously adjusted my clothes, then held her hand, walking to the counter. Relax a bit, you're hurting my hand. Willow Grace looked at the man holding her hand, feeling the sweat in my palm, noticing how tightly I gripped. Sorry, I'm just too nervous. I was so nervous I spoke incoherently. I know, darling. Don't be nervous. Willow Grace gently patted my suit, then softly kissed my cheek. I told myself to stay calm. Finally saw the firm stamp on our marriage certificate. Officially sealing our legal bond. Willow Grace and I both quietly sighed in relief, leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau. Before I could look at it a few more times, Willow Grace tucked the certificate into her bag, saying she'd keep it safe. What could I say? My wife, I have to pamper her. Seeing her take a photo of the certificate and giggle, I thought to myself, my silly wife is too adorable. Little did I know, Willow Grace was sending the photo to her family group. Childhood Pic sent the marriage certificate photo. Everyone guess what? Who tricked their childhood sweetheart into marriage? It's me! Beautiful Condom replied, impressive. How did you trick him? Childhood Pig replied, everyone get ready. Prepare to welcome your son-in-law. I'll bring him over in a few days. After sending the message, Willow Grace smiled, turning off her phone, looking at the fair-skinned man beside her. Together, thinking of the boy she liked since childhood, now her husband. She couldn't help but kiss my cheek. I pretended to dislike it, wiping my face, but unexpectedly, like flipping a switch, Willow Grace, like a chick pecking at grain, kept kissing my face nonstop. Alright, let's continue at home. This is too public. I laughed, pushing her away, heading to the car, completely unaware. Behind me, Willow Grace's eyes gleamed dangerously. He's mine now. This is officially tying the knot, isn't it? Should I slip him some medicine tonight? Would that be too blatant? Willow Grace lowered her head, walking slowly, thinking to herself as she walked. Not paying attention, her head bumped into something hard. Willow Grace yelped in pain, about to rub her head, when someone beat her to it. Wife, are you okay? Why so careless? Watch where you're going. Rubbing her head. I felt she was so adorable at that moment. Willow Grace looked at the gentleman before her, decided in her heart, I'm definitely slipping him medicine. Otherwise, such a handsome, well-built man, with such a good personality. If I let him out, someone else will snatch him. Better I enjoy him than let others have him. Willow Grace drove me to a villa. Seeing the lavish interior, I couldn't help but marvel. So I live in such luxury. But some things surprised me, because some items seemed very ordinary, even out of place in the luxurious surroundings. On an expensive-looking table sat a faded yo-yo. On a bar-like kitchen counter, supported by gold, was an old soccer ball. Of course, the shelf in the living room full of models was what caught my eye most. I glanced at it and couldn't look away. Those things, though old, gave me an inexplicable sense of familiarity, making this house feel less strange. Willow Grace, walking behind, always watched my expressions. Seeing the change in my eyes, she secretly sighed in relief, thinking to herself, lucky I was smart. Moved all his meaningful items here beforehand. Though they look a bit odd overall, they had some effect. When she saw me staring at the model shelf, unable to look away, she secretly felt smug. Doesn't your wife know what you like? Even if your mind lost its memory, your body is still honest. I recovered in this villa for another month, but the suffering in my heart was no less than the pain in my body. Because in this month, I don't know if Willow Grace did it on purpose. She wore revealing clothes every day, making my heart burn like fire. But my body hadn't fully recovered. Willow Grace only let me look, never let me touch. Truly, the heart was willing, but the strength was lacking. On the other side, Willow Grace, washing dishes in the kitchen, wasn't feeling any better. The reason was simple. She'd long wanted to devour me, but my wounds weren't fully healed. One big meal or every meal, she could tell the difference. Looking at the man on the sofa, Willow Grace gritted her teeth in frustration, but still held back. The next time I went for a checkup, sitting in the doctor's office, it was still Dr. Leaf, smiling, looking at me, saying, your wounds are almost healed. Oh right, has your memory recovered? Hearing the first half, I was thrilled. But when he asked the second half, my face immediately fell. I gave a bitter smile, shaking my head. Drive Leaf saw me shake my head, comforted me, saying it's okay. It's probably the blood clots haven't dissolved. It doesn't seem to affect your life now. Don't worry, I nodded. Then you're almost fully recovered. No need to come back for checkups. Willow Grace beside me hooked her arm through mine, led me out. At the main hall, she pressed me to sit on a chair, her eyes gleaming with excitement I didn't understand. saying to me sit here for a bit. I forgot to ask Dr. Leave something before I could call her back. I could only sit there muttering to myself, didn't Dr. Leave say I was healed? What else is there to ask? Willow Grace returned to the office. Drive Leaf looked at her puzzled, asked is there something else? Willow Grace, face full of excitement, looked at him, then closed the door. Drive Leaf watched her leave, smiled thinking today's youth. She hard to say. Really hard to say. When Willow Grace returned, she held a dark plastic bag. I couldn't see what was inside. I chose to trust her, not asking further. Just looked into her eyes. Her gaze seemed to want to devour me. What's wrong? Seeing her eyes, I shivered. Couldn't help but ask, nothing's wrong, my darling. But I felt 10 out of 10, no 12 out of 10, something was off. Looking at her tilt her head, blinking, with that sickly sweet voice. The weirder it got, the weirder it got. Darling, let's go home quick. I forgot to bring in the laundry. I swallowed nervously, worriedly saying, wife, why don't you go first? I want to stay out a bit longer. Willow Grace stepped forward, locking my neck, pinning me to the ground. You don't listen when I speak nicely. Willow Grace knew my wounds were nearly healed. Didn't hold back. This move stunned me. My mind racing, who am I? Where am I? Where am I being dragged? Who can tell me? Where's the sweet-voiced wife from before? Why is her strength so great? While I was dazed, Willow Grace dragged me off. The car stopped at the house. I hurriedly opened the car door, crawling to the roadside trash can, vomiting violently. My heart was full of doubts. What does my wife want to do? Before I could react, my wife grabbed my collar, lifted me up. I screamed inside, oh my God, such strength. My legs no longer obeyed, moving forward. I shouted, wife, calm down, calm down. I'm not that bad. But not only did she not stop, she walked faster and faster, kicked open the wooden door, making me exclaim, so cool. Then threw me into the bathroom, gave me a deep look, turned and went to the bedroom. Seeing her like that, I wasn't scared. I just thought listening to my wife is always right. Just assure her. What's the big deal? When I finished showering, I cracked the door open, peeking out with one eye. Not seeing my wife anywhere, I cautiously stepped out. My eyes turned to the bedroom. I tiptoed, taking small steps toward the bedroom, as if the person inside had X-ray vision. As I reached the bedroom door, a hand reached out from inside, grabbed my hand, pulling me in hard. I lay powerless on the sofa, holding a mirror, looking at my face. Lips swollen like sausages, pale, face yellow as wax, dark circles like a panda's. I couldn't take it anymore. Guys, whose house is this? Really using me like a workhorse? From Felix Dawn before, now in Mount Evergreen. Not a drop left in me. Darling, drink some soup. You worked hard. Hearing that sweet voice, I jumped up from the sofa. These past 2 weeks, at home it's either nourishing soup or supplements. Eating until I want to vomit at the sight. I shouted at her, don't come closer. I'm not drinking. Her face changed instantly. Not drinking soup. You'll be punished with soup. Think I'm giving you face. Willow Grace, still in her apron, placed the bowl of soup on the table before me. Then walked over. What are you doing? No hitting, no hitting. Then drink the soup for me. I looked at the bowl on the table. It wasn't even soup anymore. Goji berries, yam, all mushy like porridge. Where's the soup in that? I gave a bitter smile, looking at her. She reached out, clenching her fist in front of me. Under her strong physical threat, I reluctantly gritted my teeth and drank the whole bowl. Willow Grace saw me obediently finish her bowl of bone broth, immediately smiled. That's more like it. Darling then sat in my lap, resting her head on my chest. I stared blankly out the window, thinking this can't go on. Just a dozen days. I felt I'd lost over 10 pounds. A spark lit in my mind. I suddenly remembered I hadn't met her parents. Grabbing her mischievous hand, eyes shining, I said, wife, we've been married so long, and I haven't met your parents. How about we visit them today? Willow Grace only now remembered she'd told her parents. These days caught up in my charm. She nearly forgot this. Seeing my excited expression, she didn't know why I was so thrilled. But Willow Grace thought for a moment. It was indeed time to take me to meet her parents. So she nodded. Seeing her nod, I immediately stood up to pack clothes. Under Willow Grace's astonished gaze, in less than 10 minutes, I packed everything, placed it before her. Willow Grace, seeing my excitement, was a bit speechless. Wait here a few minutes. You'll go do my makeup. Saying that, she went upstairs. Watching her enter the room, I was so excited I nearly cried. Finally, a bit of rest. I couldn't help but think to myself. 3 hours later, it was nearly dark. Willow Grace took me to the countryside. The car stopped in front of a discreet old house. In the passenger seat, I saw two spirited elderly people at the door. Must be Willow Grace's parents. I quickly got out of the car, excitedly grabbed their hands, shouting, "Mom, Dad, you're well." Before coming, Willow Grace had told her parents about my accident, without revealing any flaws. But Willow's mom, seeing my haggard face, didn't need to guess to know. This was her daughter's masterpiece. She glared at her husband. "Look at the fine work your daughter did." Willow's dad unfairly glared at, also saw my face, couldn't help but marvel inside, then quietly gave Willow Grace a thumbs up. Willow's mom, feeling sorry, pulled me into the house. Willow Grace and her dad looked at each other, one after the other, quietly following. When everyone sat at the dining table, "You must be starving, eat." Willow's mom looked at me with pity, saying these days I'd been eating all sorts of supplements. My mouth was bland as a bird's. Seeing so many delicious dishes on the table, I ate ravenously, no regard for image. "Why am I like this?" asked your daughter, seeing me eat so eagerly. Willow's parents both glared at Willow Grace. Willow Grace looked at me, making her loose face in front of her parents like this. Outwardly, she showed no change, but inside, she was grinding her teeth in anger, thinking this time when we get home, if I let you out of bed, I'll take your surname. At this moment, Willow's mom brought out a bowl of chicken soup from the kitchen, placed it in front of me, patting my head, gently saying, "Drink this soup, son. It's very nourishing." I looked at the chicken soup speechless, but thinking it was my first time here, refusing would seem impolite. So I lowered my head and drank it in one go. After drinking, I felt my body heat up, thought it was the chicken soup, but who knew Willow's mom brought another bowl. I drank that one too, and my body grew hotter. It felt like my body wasn't mine anymore. Dazedly, I said, "Mom, why is it so hot? Turn on the AC, Mom." Willow's mom only now remembered. That pot of chicken soup had medicine in it. Wasn't it because she feared her daughter wouldn't get her fill? So she thought of this method. But looking at her son-in-law, her daughter didn't look deprived at all. More like she'd drained her son-in-law dry. So Willow's mom and dad looked at each other. Willow's dad was also involved, had forgotten this was a matter for the couple. Both turned to look at Willow Grace. Willow Grace still didn't understand what was happening. She was wondering why I felt hot, then saw her parents' looks. Willow Grace immediately understood, awkwardly coughed a few times, and I completely passed out, head slumped on the table unconscious. The moment before, 5 words flashed in my mind: "I've been drugged." The people at the table exchanged glances, then awkwardly lowered their heads. The 3 of them together carried me to a prepared room. Willow's parents, before leaving, gave Willow Grace a deep look. Willow's mom couldn't help saying, "Daughter, don't stay up too late." Willow's dad, hard to speak, looked at her, really afraid she'd finish off their son-in-law. Willow Grace didn't care, waving her hand, "Got it. Got it, you to go." Then slammed the door shut. The 2 outside looked at each other, didn't expect they'd mess things up, and ended up harming their son-in-law. They no longer had the face to see him, so they hurriedly packed their things, prepared to go into hiding for a while. Before leaving, they didn't forget to send Willow Grace a message: "Beauty, high glass heart. Grace, your parents are off to travel. If nothing unexpected happens, we won't return in this lifetime." Willow Grace, fresh from a shower, saw her mom's message, burst out laughing. She knew her mom well, but her dad joining in. Such an honest man learning to drug from her mom. Thinking of this, she laughed even harder. The next morning, waking up, my head ached terribly. I realized Last night's soup definitely had medicine. Thinking of this, I wanted to cry but had no tears. Clearly, I came to my in-laws to rest properly for a few days, but didn't expect to fall into another trap. I reached to pick up clothes from the floor, but found my legs had no strength. Panicked, I lifted the blanket, slapping my legs. Thankfully, I could still feel them, just weak and limp. My movements woke Willow Grace. She stretched, hugging me, eyes half closed, dreamily saying, "Morning, darling." I sighed weakly, replying, "Morning. Darling, what time is it?" I reached for the phone on the nightstand, opened it realizing it was 3 in the afternoon. Hurriedly sat up, urgently saying, "Get up quick. It's 3 in the afternoon. Your parents must be worried." Willow Grace calmly said, "They went traveling. Probably won't be back for a long time." I paused, putting on clothes. My whole body collapsed back on the bed, not wanting to move. Not wanting to move at all. I kind of missed my sweet wife from before. Sometimes I really wondered, like in novels, did Willow Grace have a twin sister? But thinking with my butt, I knew it was impossible. I didn't want to deal with her. Buried my head in the blanket. No matter how Willow Grace pulled, I stayed still. Willow Grace, satisfied from last night, didn't want to torment me anymore. Pulled a few times and gave up. Patted the blanket and got up. But after 2 steps, felt something strange in her body. She couldn't help frowning, but endured the discomfort and left the room. Hearing the door close, I poked my head out from the blanket. Seeing Willow Grace really gone, I tried getting out of bed. When both feet touched the ground, tried standing, I collapsed to the floor in excruciating pain. It took all my strength to crawl back onto the bed. Looks like I'm not getting out of bed today. I felt wronged. Why could Willow Grace walk normally, but I couldn't? Lost in thought, I fell asleep without realizing. When Willow Grace finished cooking, intending to wake me, seeing me asleep, she didn't have the heart to disturb. Slowly approached the bed, gently kissed my cheek like a dragonfly skimming water. Turned to see the paper scattered on the floor. Couldn't help but sigh. My husband is truly strong. About to bend down to clean. Suddenly remembered her period this month hadn't come yet. Counting the days, it was long overdue. She wasn't menopausal yet, so only one possibility: I'm pregnant. Willow Grace was so excited she almost shouted. Then looked at me sleeping like a dead pig on the bed. Felt inexplicably irritated, so she slapped my face. "OW, who hit me?" I jolted awake. I have my pride too. Even if you're my wife, you can't just hit me for no reason. I was about to get angry, but Willow Grace said one sentence: "I'm pregnant." Seeing her smug expression, I was stunned by her words. Trembling, I placed my hand on her belly, eyes shining, looking at her. Swallowing, saying, really, not confirmed yet. Go buy me a pregnancy test." I didn't care about her smugness. Okay, you rest. I'll go buy it now." Instantly felt full of strength. My back didn't hurt anymore. My legs weren't weak. Looking at the luxury cars in the garage. Too bad they were all cars I didn't know how to drive. I awkwardly video called my wife. "Wife, they're all cars. I don't know how to drive. What do I do?" Willow Grace on the other end rubbed her forehead. She forgot. This fool never had money to buy a car before, let alone drive. Not knowing what to do, turned and saw in the living room a photo of her dad with a motorcycle. Suddenly remembered, there might be a motorcycle in the garage. Told me over the phone, "Look carefully. There's probably a motorcycle in the garage. Search well." Hung up after speaking. I was about to say, "Do I know how to ride a motorcycle?" Before I could, she hung up. I could only shake my head helplessly, thinking I'll try my luck. After some searching, I found a motorcycle. I fell in love at first sight. Couldn't resist sitting on it. Hearing the engines roar made my blood boil. Of course, I didn't forget my mission. As the garage door slowly opened, I shot out like an arrow. The hospital in town was quite far. Driving took an hour. Luckily, I made it just before closing. Bought the stuff. Hung it on the handlebar mirror. On the way back, I drove slower than before. Couldn't help staring at it, thinking I was about to be a dad. But one moment of distraction, a truck suddenly swerved in front of me. I instinctively slammed the brakes. Finally, a few meters away, the bike stopped. The driver passing by leaned out the window cursing, but I didn't care. I remembered everything. It was a truck too. It was brakes too. The scene of the brake failure last time replayed before my eyes. Unknowingly, my back was drenched in cold sweat. But what confused me more was how to face Willow Grace. I didn't just recover my past memories. The memories with Willow Grace these months didn't fade. I stopped the bike, instinctively reached for cigarettes in my pocket. But there was nothing, just a few candies Willow Grace stuffed in before I left. I froze for a long time, finally unwrapped one and put it in my mouth, thinking of her in the hospital, telling me about our story. The corners of my mouth couldn't help but curl up. Clearly she was the one bullying me, yet she made up that I did. My mind flashed with images of her feeding me chicken soup spoonful by spoonful, though I never liked chicken soup since childhood. That time, I willingly drank it, her cooking though all supplements. But remembering her smile when she brought the bowl from the kitchen, I smiled looking up at the sky. Maybe I should hide it from her, stay with her a bit longer. The thought popped up, then I immediately dismissed it joking. Wouldn't she beat me to death? But looking at the pregnancy test on the handlebar, thinking I'd registered our marriage, and that this foolish act was my own suggestion to that crazy girl, I rubbed my face in frustration. The little demon had the upper hand. When I was about to be overwhelmed by her, her sweet smile flashed in my mind. I looked up, couldn't help but give a bitter smile saying to myself, looks like I'll be bullied by her for life. Then I drove back to the villa. Maybe since we were very young, from the first glance I liked her. Otherwise I wouldn't have deliberately dangled her favorite toy in front of her. Or maybe it was the sweet times recently that made me like her. I'm not sure when it started. Love doesn't need a reason. Back at the villa, I nervously opened the door, still as cheerful as before, handed her the pregnancy test. But she just looked at me deeply, took the test and went to the bathroom. I thought I hadn't given myself away, because my joy was genuine. But soon after, Willow Grace, face full of joy, came out of the bathroom, excitedly jumped into my arms. I really didn't understand why she changed so drastically, but she leaned close to my ear, softly saying, "You've recovered your memory, haven't you, little Dawn?" Hearing this, I froze on the spot. Really couldn't figure out how she knew. Asked her, but she wouldn't say. Just kept snuggling in my arms. "Anyway, I'm carrying your child. I don't believe you can run." I only quietly held her tighter. "Kissed your forehead?" "No way, absolutely not." The insecurities of youth made me afraid to confess to the one I liked. But that girl back then took the initiative. How could I back away again? 10 years later, big sis, are you serious? You're pregnant again? My left arm held our 6th child playing with a toy. My right arm held our 7th still breastfeeding. The eldest and second helped me watch their siblings, making sure they didn't chew their own feet. The house was like a frog market, cries echoing everywhere. The woman standing at the top of the stairs stretched. None other than Willow Grace. At this moment, she was as excited as if injected with adrenaline. Quickly came down the stairs, scaring me so much I jumped up in pain. Hurriedly stepped over wife. "What's this?" Excited. "Thrilled. I told you I'd give you 8 sons." I laughed, patting her, saying, "How many times have I told you? Don't call yourself madam in front of the kids." She pouted at me. "Oh darling, I forgot." Looking at her, I asked the question that puzzled me for 10 years. "Wife, how did you know right away I'd recovered my memory?" She glared at me, saying, "Who loses their memory but still knows the door code?" I was stunned. Just a small detail like that exposed me. But Willow Grace didn't even look at me. Went straight to the kids, seeing them obediently looking at Willow Grace, not crying or fussing, just clapping their hands. I smiled, holding the 2 kids in my arms, joining the children. Sometimes I'm quite grateful to the old man who hit me, but next time I see him, I'll still give him a slap.